Welcome to the Madison Mortgage Podcast, hosted by, today, Shah Tehrany. And I get to interview the one and only New York's favorite British mortgage broker, Ben Lavender. Who happens to have a very cool last name, Lavender. A lot of people are envious of that last name.
In my youth, I wasn't. I wouldn't say bullied for it, but I just thought it was very weak sounding.
Really? I don't think it's weak. I think it's cool.
Well, thank you. Well, as I, got older, now I freaking love it for the exact reason, because it's cool, it's memorable.
It's fun. It's lavender. Lavender's like hot right now too. I feel like every product has lavender in it.
Really? Yeah. Oh, that's true. Like candles, scents, everything.
Yeah, so it's cool. So welcome.
Thanks, man.
Finally, I get to actually interview you, which is fun. I get to be the host, and you're hosting so many of these. I think you're hosting like 85% of these. So it's
fun. I enjoy it. Honestly, it's a lot of fun. But don't get me wrong, it's nice to be a guest.
Yeah,
and
it's
relax,
cool.
And you're the man of the hour. So take it away.
You get to be the guest, and I get to ask you the questions, which is fun. So, Ben, tell us, there's a lot of people in this industry that know who you are.
Yep.
You are, pretty popular within the BAB community. A lot of people know you. I think you've contributed tremendously to that community and sort of helping people with, an understanding of like how to be good and how to approach social media, right? And sort of the importance of it in terms of how it affects your business. Certainly, it's had a pretty significant impact on your business.
Huge, yeah.
And the awareness, your awareness within the industry. Tell us a little bit about your story for folks that don't know it. Like, how did you get started? First of all, how'd you wind up in the United States? And then how'd you get started? A lot of people don't know your full story.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I should say we immigrated here when I was 14. And this was in 2003.
Yep.
And I remember it quite clearly because it was New Year's Day or the day after New Year's. And grew up in Great Neck, went to Great Neck South High School. So this is a common question I get too is like, Ben, your accent isn't 100% British, but it's semi, and the reason is because I moved during my teens.
Yeah.
So my parents moved me here for a multitude of reasons. Family is kind of the main one. We have a ton of family here.
Yeah.
Opportunity, it's good for their business. It's good for my future, Leah's future, my sister. And we all turned out pretty good. So evidently it was the right move.
Good choice.
And went to, where did I go to school? Queens College, good old local Queens College. I studied accounting and I was working for like a CPA. Yeah. Good times. I was working for a CPA locally, like once a week, twice a week. And what happened is that I think a few months before I was going to graduate, I ran into you at a family function.
Yep.
And
for those of you that don't know, yes. Ben Lavender is my cousin.
Yes.
So
hashtag nepotism.
Completely.
Yeah. So when I met you there, I think it was kind of, or maybe you could even tell me, is that you were basically, why don't you give mortgages a try?
I think the story goes that's true. That's totally what happened. But I think my brother, Mateen, was like, hey, dude, I think Ben's kind of like sort of figuring out what's going, and he's a really smart dude. And I think he might really dig the mortgage business. Why don't you like talk to him about it? And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I will talk to him about it. Of course. I love Ben. Yeah. So that's kind of what happened, and we talked about it, and I guess the timing was good, right? Because you were sort of evaluating what was your next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I remember once I was done with school, and then I called you. I remember, I don't know, maybe you were either busy or you were testing me, because I had to chase you down to get an interview. And
probably.
So
sorry.
It was.
I was too busy originating loans.
Good.
So now you get it.
Good. No, it was good because we spoke. You weren't ignoring me, but it was like, so I called like, call me next week. We'll do it. So, and then I remembered and, finally came in and we got everything going. And the beginning of the business was very tough because, as you know, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm more introverted naturally. I'm not a big sales guy. I'm not a big talker. So, and I also didn't know anything about mortgages, like literally nothing. I didn't know what purchasing, refinancing, cash out, rate and term,
Zero.
all these, like literally nothing. I was also terrible on the phone, and then with time,
you weren't terrible.
in the beginning, because I didn't know anything.
Yeah, for sure.
And then eventually, I should say eventually, like it took years. It took a few months, and then after learning and getting a bunch of deals going, structuring loans, I got my confidence. So I would say a lot of my confidence comes from literally, like, this was 10 years ago, and I was your LOA, that we were just reviewing files nonstop.
Yep.
Like, carefully structuring files that, we would make sure that they go out to your realtor contacts that are 100% pre-approved, and, every single document. And I'm fortunate that I learned how to do it the right way. You taught me the right way to do it, whereas a lot of people in the business is like, just go get business and figure it out. Yeah. The problem with that is, and this again, where I think I'm very fortunate, is that when I got a lot of the business of my own accounts, I was able to execute and actually close those pretty much perfectly. Yeah. Where I think new LOs in the business are taught, go get business first and then learn how to structure it later.
Yeah.
Whereas because I did it the other way around, not only were the people that referred me business very happy, but it gave me the confidence. A better word is really the conviction to go out there and get business, because I knew I could close it and give everyone a very good experience.
Yeah, you knew you could execute. And I think that's lost on a lot of people in the business. Like, it's like, I'm sorry to say that it's like you're only as good as your last deal, but I think that's a great mentality. It's like, you have to make sure that if you have a referral partner sending you a transaction, like, you must make sure that if you tell that realtor, this deal's good, it's pre-approved, it's good, if you stay within these parameters, with respect to purchase price and taxes, you're good. Yeah. We'll be able to execute. And maybe that in other areas of the country where ratio to purchase price is less of an issue and there's more W-2 borrowers, but New York is a particularly tough state, right?
Yes.
Home prices are high. Variable income is common amongst borrowers, right? So it's challenging. You have to really know how to calculate income. You have to really know how to set parameters around pre-approvals. And I think you got a great foundation to sort of figure out, like, all the mistakes I made, in the business, like, I sort of was able to teach you, like, take this approach because this is a best practice. And, at that time, like, our infrastructure wasn't as mature. Like, our team was, right? We didn't have the training infrastructure that we have now. We didn't have the sort of approach. We didn't have the ability to sort of build loan officers the way we do now. So
very different.
Yeah, it was much different. So it was fun, and those were good years.
It was fun. Yeah, we had a great time.
We had a great time doing it, and it was a good time. And I think, to what you said just a minute ago was like, people come in and it's like, well, I don't know anything about mortgages, and it's like, knowledge creates confidence.
Yep.
Right? And it's like, the more you know and the more you understand the process and the more you understand how to execute transactions, the more confident you are in talking to consumers and sort of educating them. And same thing goes with realtors. And I think that's, where we sort of focus. And I think that's where people need to focus. Yep. It's like, you want to learn mortgages, like, learn them, right? It's not just about selling. This is not a selling business. Mortgages are fundamentally a commodity product.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, it's about realistically understanding every facet of the process, educate yourself, and then this way you can go out there and effectively educate consumers that are working with you.
Literally. And in addition to that, I think something that helped me tremendously was just the amount of volume that we did. I mean, when you were originating a lot of business. So that gave me a tremendous amount of experience setting up the files, walking the borrowers through the process from start to finish, because that gave them confidence. And, like, to give you some perspective, the difference between me now and then, because I've had basically the same conversation with clients and realtors a million times, right? So back then it would take me like 20 to 30 minutes to really, like, dig and figure out, like, what it is they're saying. Because I've done it so many times now, it takes me like 2 minutes.
Right.
It's easier. It's so much easier. And again, I'm fortunate that I have that experience, but it takes time, and I think you have to constantly, like, refine your process and self-assess.
Yes.
Obviously, agreed. I definitely have an ego to some degree, but there's a careful balancing of ego and confidence with also the ability to kind of step back and say, what can I do better? which I still do to this day. I do literally, I have it in my calendar where I have to reassess everything that I'm doing once a quarter. And
that's great. That's a great practice, right? It's like we're always focusing on getting better and improving. And it's like if you have a structured process to actually force yourself to do that, that's great. I didn't know you actually do that. That's awesome.
If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't happen.
I know. It's true. It's good. You're very structured about it. So let's talk about. We're at the end of 2021. Yep. It's been by most accounts the best year on the books ever in the mortgage business, and I think a lot of originators are doing quite well. But there are, as rates are starting to climb a bit, I know it because I'm getting more calls from originators in the business like, hey, how are things going? Have you guys slowed? And we're like not really.
Just had a record month.
Yeah, we just had another record month. But give us your perspective and like what advice would you give to some of the originators out there who will listen to this podcast? Like, what do you think 2022 is going to look like, and sort of how are you preparing for 2022 so that you can ensure it's another really successful year, and maybe touch on a little bit of sort of the mechanics of how your business is engineered to sort of be a little bit bulletproof and a little bit able to sustain the fluctuations in the rate market?
Yeah, so I'll take it back to what we did from the very beginning 10 years ago, is that we have always been purchase focused, always. And I personally prefer, this about me, I prefer to do purchases. I find them more fulfilling. Agreed. Helping someone buy a home is more, I don't know if emotional is the right word, but I just feel like it's better for the connection. I enjoy it much more. You can really develop a relationship with the client, with the realtor, the attorneys, everyone involved. Yeah. So it really just comes down to purchases, right? That's the obvious answer for people who are kind of wondering. Now, the other question is, how do you set your business up to go after purchases, as opposed to just sitting on a dialer trying to book refis all day, right? Yep. So, my business in particular, and you alluded to this before, is very heavily focused on social media, right? So when people look at my social media, especially originators, they have this kind of a fantasy, and I would say it's a false fantasy, that you're going to make a bunch of posts and deals are just going to fall into your lap. And after a month or two of posting, whatever it is that you post, they just kind of give up. And that's not it's not the reality of the situation. The best example of what it does is that it helps me build relationships over time with people. It helps people get to know me, whether it's my humor, personality, professionalism, whatever it is, right? It's a way to attract people to you and really build yourself. As you've said, kind of, I have a reputation in the industry now with the BAB community and with people locally. So like, for those of you thinking that I'm going to post stuff and like deals are just going to fall onto my lap, that's not how it happens. What does happen from time to time, and I'm friends with a lot of people locally, realtors in the business. So the advantage that it gives me is that when realtors come across my pre-approvals with my name and face on it, they are familiar with my content and with me. Yeah. So I literally get this call 1 to 3 times a week. It's, Ben, I saw you on Instagram, or I saw you on Facebook, and we've never spoken before, but you're all over my feed, and I have 20 pre-approvals. I put yours to the top of the list because I've seen your content, I'm familiar with you, I know that you know what you're doing. That's the real thing. So it's like my buyers, in a way, get an advantage when they have my pre-approval. I'm not saying that I'm the reason offers get accepted, but it helps.
But it helps.
It definitely helps.
It's true. I mean, like, come on, man. Like, we could be real. Like, in the New York market, people know who we are. Yeah. Right. And they know that, like, we know how to execute transactions, and they execute quickly. Particularly you. They know if you say the client's good, it's good. And so the realtors that know you or know of you know that to be your reputation, and so it tends to give them more confidence, all things being equal, right? If they
Precisely.
have, different types of borrowers at the same, different type of offers at the same purchase prices, but they know like, hey, this is with Ben, I know this loan's going to get executed. Yep. And so it tends to help those consumers get their offers accepted, right?
Tremendously.
Right. And so
it helps.
Yeah, it's an important part of the component. So it goes to like why it's important to be out there and to be known within your community, right? And the people that you work with, or and the realtors that we work with, so that the consumer, they know who you are, they can feel comfortable to call you and pick up, as opposed to just some random pre-approval and they have no confidence, right? Yeah. And so back to the original question is like 2022, your focus is obviously will continue to remain heavily on purchase.
Heavily on purchase.
What do you see for the market?
Media.
Where do you think things are going? What do you see? What's your focus? Is really more just the market's the rates are gonna tick up. It looks like, right? A little bit, maybe not a lot. That's my opinion, but
yeah, I don't think that we're gonna see a tremendous decrease in purchase prices. I think values are going to continue to increase. I'm a big fan of MBS Highway. I watch them. Shout out to Barry Habib and the crew. Yeah. I watch them every single day, and the problem is, and it's a fundamental long-term problem, is that inventory is going to remain low.
Yeah.
Right. So regardless of where rates go, unless they go to a stupid number where affordability is really challenging, we're not going to see a slowdown in the market. We may see some buyer frustration. I think that's the only thing that will affect it, and I've already seen a little bit of it, because it's like they're looking, and the prices keep going up, and then on top of the prices going up, if the rates go up too, they're just going to be like, forget it. But good old Eco 101, supply and demand, maybe the prices will stay stagnant. If the rates go up, maybe the prices continue. Either way, we'll be ready. Right, we'll be in front of everyone and ready to do business. So, long story short, I don't see much of a change, with the exception that the refi volume is going to slow down, with the exception of cash outs.
Agreed. That's sort of my forecast, and in fact, I think certainly at Madison we're going to do more business than we've ever done. 2022 is going to be our biggest year, regardless of where the market is, just because we're in a scale and growth mindset. And we'll continue to get better and focus on enhancing our sort of delivery to everyone. Talk about, we've sort of touched on some of this already, but talk about if you could identify two variables or critical things that you do in your approach to the business that you think attribute the most to your success. What would you define those as sort of being, or if you're giving advice to originators that are out there, what are the two items you'd say to them, focus the most on these two items because they will help you in sort of being successful? Yeah,
the two most important things, there are actually two answers to this. There's the literal, and then there's the more philosophical. So literally, when it comes to...
Give me both.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to day-to-day activity, you need to focus on learning about your products and being an excellent originator.
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two is constantly prospecting for new business, right? You always have to keep business coming in the door, and a lot of people struggle to balance those two things.
Elaborate on that, the second point. How keeping more business coming in the door, how do you approach that?
Yeah, so that could be literally interacting with people on social media, networking events, it could be advertising, it could be more marketing, more content, the amount of things, or how you do it is really up to you. I think kind of the old school mentality of, knocking on realtors' doors for business is gone. They're sick of hearing the same pitch, close in 30 days with great rates, even though that we close in a week with even better rates.
Yeah.
But that's, the point is that everyone has the same pitch, right? So you have to find a way to connect with people that can send you business in a genuine format. So another thing that I see loan officers do is when they're trying to connect with realtors, instead of building a relationship, they're just asking for business.
Yeah.
Or that business is just, the foundation of that business is marketing, meaning that, hello, realtor, do you want to start a marketing campaign? Let's do business.
Terrible.
So the realtors that we work with that really have been long-term with us, and there are some that, 10 years they've been with us, even more, 15 for the ones that you were with before. It's really, they send us business because they know, again, that we can execute and close transactions and give the clients a great experience. The marketing is second, right? So a realtor will just, first things first, find a loan officer that will pay for a bunch of my marketing and then figure it out. The problem is that if you do that and that loan officer doesn't know what they're doing, they'll get business. You'll get business, but the transaction will not go smoothly. You won't get any referrals. And that loan officer, because ultimately loan officers that you refer as a realtor, we are a reflection of you.
Yeah.
So if we do a poor job, the client is going to associate that with you as a realtor. And then you're an idiot, right, for referring some loser loan officer that doesn't know what they're doing.
And the deal gets blown up and screwed up, and it becomes an issue, and then they call us to fix it.
Exactly. Yes, which happens a lot. And don't get me wrong, we don't mind.
No,
because we do fix them.
And I want to like sort of just supplement to that is I think I think what people is lost on many people that are originators is like the number one chief complaint of every realtor, and you ask is like, how do you choose your loan officer? Why do you use this loan officer? What's your biggest frustration with a loan officer? They don't answer their phone. No. I literally built relationships on the basis of like, I answer my phone.
Yeah.
If a realtor calls me, I answer. If I'm on the phone, I answer. I might tell the person I'm on the phone with like, hey, hold on one second. Hey, realtor. Hey, what's up, man? I'm just on the other line, but I saw it was you calling and I want to answer my phone. As soon as I'm done with the call, I already made a note. I'm going to call you right back when I'm done with this call.
Yep. That's the number one thing.
Yeah, and they love it. They're like, cool, thanks, man. Yeah. And they got to the point where they were like texting me like, hey, can you call me as soon as you have a free minute? And they know that I'll do it quickly when I'm not on the phone.
Agreed. 100%.
You want the best tip out there for how to win realtor business? Answer your phone. Answer your phone when they call.
And that includes, by the way, when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially when things go wrong. If something goes sideways or not wrong, but like when you run into a challenge, sometimes the realtor needs help. We're doing, 200 transactions a month. The realtor might be doing 2 or 3. We may have seen that scenario. We may know a best practice to resolve it. I get tons of realtors that would call me and say like, hey, how do I fix this issue? I ran into this issue. Or hey, the title report came back and I have this issue with the C of O. All those types of scenarios, right? And it's like, so elaborate on that because I feel like we don't talk about as much of like best practices. What does your referral partner want? How do you become a great resource for your referral partner?
So it's literally what you just said. So number one is communication. Always pick up your damn phone. Number one complaint. And then the other thing is to just be a partner. I can't tell you like how many times realtors call me, even if I'm not like on the transaction myself. They're like, I'm doing this deal with Chase or some local retail loser, and they're like, they're having an issue here, and it's like, how do I resolve this? And even though I'm not getting paid on it, I have nothing to do with it, I'm more than happy to help because I'm a partner. If their success is my success at the end of the day.
100%.
And it's just be there for them. And again, the problem with most originators, when they look at it that way, they are like, why should I help someone if I'm not getting paid? It's like you cannot have that mentality. That's a super like selfish mentality. It's a loser mentality, quite frankly, that's not being a partner.
Yep. And I've in my career, and just to elaborate on that, like I've had plenty of experiences where the realtor was like, hey, this mortgage professional was his cousin, so I tried to explain to him the value of working with you, but he really felt more comfortable to stay there, and I was like, cool. And then he would call me on a transaction and say, hey, this totally got screwed up. Like, what do we do here? How do we handle this? This is the issue we're running into. And it's like, you're not going to get 100% of every transaction from all your realtors. Like your realtor's your partner. They got to do what's good for their business. They got to do ultimately what their client wants to do. They can't steer the business. They can encourage, the client to say, hey, this is a really good mortgage professional that I have a lot of confidence in. Why don't you call him and see what you think? Right, and then it's on sort of us to sort of make an impression and sort of win the business, right?
I always say to them like, all we really need is an introduction, and we'll take it from there.
Just give us the opportunity.
Yeah, you don't have to, because this is another interesting thing. Of all my clients that are buying a home, I would say 9 out of 10 of them have at least one other pre-approval.
Yeah,
sometimes more. So, because that's another thing.
Which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
It was like, great. I'm so glad you got pre-approved by somebody else because you got that perspective. Now you'll get mine, and then you make the choice.
Exactly.
Right? Like, and it's okay. If you don't choose me and you're 6 months into the process and they haven't closed, you could call me. It's not, I've had plenty of clients call me and ask me questions that went with another bank, and they were like, oh, I got messed up. I'm at the finish line. I thought you might know. I know I didn't go with you. And it's like, okay, let me help you.
Yeah.
It's all good. And then they
refer everyone they know.
And then they'll say, like, hey, I used this guy. I didn't use him. It was a mistake. I should have used Shah. Should have used Ben. Don't make that mistake. Go with these guys. I called them halfway through the transaction and they helped me fix it.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't like on the deal. So, to Ben's point, be a good partner. Yeah. Be a really, really good partner to your partners. If you look at it like it's a partnership and you look at it like I'm going to help this person no matter what, that's the right approach. And I think the other element to that, which somebody taught me really early in my career, is like, look, go after the partners that you're going to enjoy working with.
That's huge.
Right?
Yeah,
like that gets lost on people. Like, you don't want to work with people that don't match your personality, your style. Like, that's just not going to work long term. The partnerships that are going to be the strongest are the ones where you enjoy working with them. You enjoy, having a personal relationship with them. Yes, you do business together as well.
Of course.
But that's the best way in terms of building long-term partnerships. And look, everyone's not going to like you. Right? Some people are like, I don't like that guy. His British accent's hard to understand, or some people are like, I don't like big grizzly Persian men, so I don't want to work with Shah. That guy's annoying. He's loud.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy.
It definitely happens. But
that's okay.
I think that's so key because that goes with like chemistry, communication.
Chemistry, that's the right word.
If that's there also, because it takes a couple deals to like get a feel for how each of you do business.
Yeah.
Different people want different updates at different times. Some people are like, some realtors are very, very keen on being the appraisal contact if they're the buyer's agent.
Yes.
Other realtors want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to get in the way, call the listing agent. And then you learn over time, like, who likes what.
Yep.
And something that you mentioned before is like, you want to work with people that you enjoy working with.
Yep.
So for me, that includes people who don't make issues out of nothing. I find that there are people, this goes again for realtors and loan officers, in many cases more so the loan officers, is to just cause drama for the sake of it. It's like this, like
the alarmists.
Yeah, the alarmists for no reason. It's like, and it's like, what's the issue? And then you dig a little deeper, and I find that, and this took me actually way too long to learn, is that what I used to do is meet their energy with the same amount of urgency. And don't get me wrong, I still do in terms of my responsiveness, but what I realize now is what I have to do is calm them down, right? So instead of being like, this issue, I'm like, tell me what the issue is.
Play therapist.
Let's figure it out.
And let's identify, is it really an issue?
Exactly. And I feel that because on top of calming the client down when stuff happens, right? And when I'm saying stuff happens, like 99% of the time, the issue is that the seller wants another month or two to close for some stupid, asinine reason.
Or some obstacle that is easy to overcome that we've overcome 150 times before.
Yes.
But it's, it's new to them. And so they don't know, they don't understand the complexity of the issue and that issue is not an issue. And that's why you go to an expert.
Yeah.
You go to somebody that's done thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions and knows the market and knows the area and knows all the players.
And we love doing them too.
Yeah. And it's, it's fun. It's fun.
It's super, super fun, this business. So I don't know what my point was, but basically you just want to be calm, cool, collected and figure out how to solve things without being an alarmist, as you said.
Be a problem solver. That's an important component. You want to be the problem solver on the equation,
precisely.
On the transaction, and whatever comes up, we'll figure it out. For the most part, 99% of it is all resolvable.
Yeah.
Right. So
and something that you taught me, Shah, a long time ago is if there is an issue, deal with it immediately. Do not let it sit. And I'm constantly bringing up issues, and I hope the perception is that there aren't a ton of issues, because there aren't. The vast majority of our transactions go very smoothly, but things happen.
But it's about that 5%. It's about when something does come up.
How do you handle it?
Is how you handle it, how you respond to it, fixing it fast so that it doesn't get out, and no one having the perception like, The perception should be like, oh, we ran into this issue and like they were on it right away.
Yeah.
Like, oh, not the realtor, and I hear this so much from realtors is like, oh, well, we ran into the problem and the guy ghosts me for a week and a half. I haven't heard from him. He doesn't respond, right? It's like, that's 95% is smooth sailing, 5% is you run into a challenge, and 0.005% is like something you can't overcome. So,
but that's exactly how to approach it. That 5% you have to handle quickly and immediately. And again, 99% of the time, those things are solvable, and we move on. But handling it quickly doesn't just ease, and this is for originators, so handling those problems quickly doesn't just ease the tension of the client and the realtor, but it also, it releases the stress from yourself, and you're able to do your job better in a more efficient format. So it's like if that's not one way to motivate you, that's another, is that if you want a stress-free originator career, handle things quickly and efficiently. As Ishbia says, time kills deals. So handle things quickly, get them closed, move on.
Love it. Good. So, all right, let's talk about, we touched on so many. We're so long-winded. We've touched on so many of these things. Let's talk a little bit about personality style. And so this is like for some of the new originators, and it's funny, we hire so many people here, and we've hired so many new originators in this environment. A lot of them that make the final interview, and I actually meet with them because I meet every single person that we hire in this environment. A lot of them say, hey, I watched all your podcasts, right? Yeah. And so here's one for our new originators who are thinking about joining Madison Mortgage. Hopefully you'll watch this podcast. If you watch any podcast, it's probably this one you should watch.
He's right,
Let's talk about like, what type of personality sets do you think, or skill sets do you think are paramount in sort of determining, like, I want to be an originator, I don't know anything about mortgages, what type of skill sets do I need to have? What type of behavioral style do I need to have? Although behaviors are modifiable, like, what type of people will make good loan originators?
It's a great question. So thinking about this, I think that the typical answer would be, again, what we kind of talked about before, is if you're more extroverted or introverted, but I don't think it's necessarily either of those, because whether you're extroverted or introverted, you can have success in this business.
For sure.
I think the major skill that you need, and there are two really, to really grow your career and become better. One is the ability to constantly self-assess and refine your process. And that requires checking your ego at the door and saying, what am I good at and what am I not so good at that I need to get better? The second piece is
love that.
Something, the second piece is something that people don't really think about, because when you think mortgages or realtor, whatever it is, people think kind of salesperson. How good are your sales skills? And I think people need to replace the word sales skills with communication skills. How good are you at listening to what people are saying and figuring out what they're really trying to say? So, because people will say something on the phone to you, but they'll mean something else entirely. And you have to be able to kind of read their tonality and what they're saying to really get there, because the mortgage business itself is complex in terms of like the verbiage, LTV, DTI, contracts, EMD, blah, 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 right? So most consumers don't know what this stuff means. So you have to be able to, listen to them and what they're saying, because they're trying to say something, but because they're not familiar with, what we do every day, they don't know how to say it. And then it's basically rephrasing their question. So that's something I do often, is like, if they're saying something that kind of makes sense and I'm trying to figure out where they're going with this, I'll repeat it and I'll be like, is this what you mean? Like, how much money do you need to put down on contract versus bring to closing? Is that what you're saying? And be like, Ben, that's exactly what I'm saying. And then,
so it's like clarifying what they're trying to communicate to ensure that you're giving them an effective answer that they can understand, and that they clearly understand it, right? So which goes to communication skills.
Yeah, exactly. And then that requires, again, listening, and then whether it's repeating it back or demonstrating it in a manner that they can understand, I think that is huge because it translates across not just clients, but the realtors that you partner with, the attorneys in New York State, an attorney state. So it's, I think that's honestly one of the main skills. It's not sales, it's communication.
I would say that's number one in my mind, right? Yeah. Whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, your capacity to listen and effectively communicate will define your success, not only in the mortgage business, but in life.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, I think that's lost. And I think most people don't focus on getting better at that.
No.
Right? And it's like, even the cadence with which you speak, how you speak, you know, a lot of what I try to impart on sort of the newbies is like, your role is advisory.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like somebody's coming to you that doesn't understand all the intricacies of the process. You might be new and you may be learning, but you're everyday immersion, full immersion in learning. So focus on the learning, but focus on like how to become an advisor.
Yeah.
Right? And communication is the most critical component of that. So I love that answer because that, to me, and that will resonate with me a little bit too long term, is like, it's really just all about communication.
Yeah, it's that simple. It just It comes down, there's all this other stuff with like objections and rebuttals and blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, none of that matters if you don't listen and solve whatever it is.
And again, mortgages, they are a commodity product. You you have literally millions of choices. You can go anywhere you want to get a mortgage. Right? If you're smart, you'll do it in the independent mortgage channel and the broker channel because it's factual information that you will get a better deal.
Yep.
Right? But fundamentally, people make the choice on who they feel confident with, right? Absolutely. Some will choose on the basis of rate. That generally leads to us winning, which is great. So maybe we can identify, are we really great communicators? Because I think we are, or is it just that our rates are so damn good?
I think it's both.
It's probably a combination of both, and that's why we've scaled exponentially.
Yep.
Right? And so if you're out there and you're watching and you're interested in being in the mortgage business, you have to be focused on becoming an excellent communicator. That is what will define your capacity. Be a learner and be a great communicator and have a good attitude, and you'll be amazing in this business.
Literally, I think that's perfectly said. It's so because there's so much that this business encompasses with, you know, structuring the business from the sales to the processing, the operations, closing, post-closing,
everything,
marketing. There's so much, but it really just comes down to that because you can have all those things, but if you don't have that foundation of good communication skills, product knowledge, you know, it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I love that. All right, cool. So, and we've touched on so many of these points that I wanted to hit, man. It was just natural. We didn't even have to look at this thing. It was great. So, final synopsis, final question. Your final synopsis on what 2021 was for you in terms of from a personal and from a professional standpoint. Reflect on 2021. And you do this quite a bit. So, where'd you get better?
Yeah.
Where'd you improve? And then close out with like, what are you really focused on, and what are your goals for 2022, and what do you want to work on, get better at, and focus on?
It's a great question. So this year,
I'm a pretty decent interviewer, by the way. Decent. I'm not as good as Ben, but
I'm pretty damn good, dude. You're doing great. Thank you. So 2021 for me, as you know, has been a record year. You know, I'm at, I think, like 200 and something units year to date, 108 million in volume, which is, it's not to brag. It's like, because years ago, I wasn't even close to that, right? No way near. This is very, very recent. So
this was your best year on the books. I mean, for us,
easy.
Your scale was enormous.
Yeah, it was massive.
So, and just to clarify, like, it wasn't a function of like just the fact that rates were good. That was only a small portion of your business, I would say, because I look at your mix of purchase to refi, and you were still so purchase heavy.
Yeah, 80% purchase this year, which is great. So, well, another interesting thing is that I believe that mortgage applications compared to last year, this year has been weaker nationwide because mortgage apps overall are down 20%.
Yes.
So the fact that we're up in, 2020 was supposed to be the huge year, and we're even bigger this year, I think that says, tremendous things about us and what we're doing. But to answer the question,
yes,
the focus for me is really building out the team and training the team, getting them all better. As you said, knowledge builds confidence. So that's a huge thing. Every single file on top of the training that we do regularly when we bring people in, I train them the way that you train me. We review files together, we go over everything, make sure they know. Same thing, basic, and the same communication skills I use for people that I work with in the business, I use for my team as well. All right, so that's one is building them out, which I'm going to continue to do, and rebrand from, Ben Lavender to Team Lavender.
Yep.
Right, so that's a huge one, and something that we did as well is really work on the process from start to finish from a non-sales perspective. So what I mean by that is like a few things that I implemented is every time I pre-approve someone, we send them something in the mail saying congratulations on your pre-approval. We send them like a list of do's and don'ts while you're pre-approved, like, don't quit your job and, the basic things, right?
Yeah.
And then post-close gifting and then video education throughout the process. That's something that shout out to Chris and Jareth have helped with tremendously. So this way we can educate our clients better. And so that's been the main focus, team and internal process. Now, 2022 is going to just be the same thing, but amplified. It's going to be more content, more refining the process. There are other things that I'm looking to do, host more events, get out there more, interact with the community more, and continue to grow, regardless of where the market is. Because when you think about it, I don't know how many mortgages are done nationwide. I mean, the market right now is what, 1 trillion or something like that?
Oh, no bigger, like close to 4 trillion in 2021, but it will probably shrink down to, my guess is around 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion.
But even with that said, right?
We're big.
Yeah, but exactly. But it's not like we're closing $1 trillion and if the market shifts, oh no, like we're so small in this massive, massive pond. So all you really need to do is just keep doing the same thing. Keep prospecting, keep growing, and your business will not suffer. And again, we plan on growing tremendously, and everyone is welcome to come along for the ride.
Yes, indeed. Ben, always a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
It was good to do this, and thanks for all of you out there watching. If you've watched this long, we appreciate it.
Yes.
And hopefully you took some beneficial things from this pod. Ben's incredible, and if you're a client watching, thanks for really watching. That's amazing. You're down to this far, and hopefully you got some perspective on sort of our approach to the business and what's important to us. So, Madison Podcast, over and out.
Peace.
Peace.